Hello, y'all. I'm LaGina, and we're back for another episode of LaRae Infinity Let's Talk Podcast, Season 3, The Ladies Behind the Mic. And as always, I'm saying thank you to every last one of my listeners, my haters, my guests, my followers, my uplifters, and everything else. As always, Black 365, Pride 365, and it is Pride Month, so add a little extra plus in there, and here we are. Warning, in this show, there is cursing, adult conversation, and explicit language.
Hey all, my name is Gabby, and I am 34 years old. My zodiac sign is that I'm Leo, and today I'm going to talk to you about butch visibility and masculinity, and you are listening to the LaRae Infinity Let's Talk Podcast Season 3, Episode 10.
Episode 10, yes! Episode 10, y'all, and my name's LaGina, your host. So I want to welcome to the mic my friend that I met through one of the men. The men really stepped up for their Season 1 and added some extra spice to the LaRae Infinity Let's Talk Podcast family. So I have to give a shout out to Eric. Eric, congratulations on your job. Thank you for connecting me with Gabby. I just have to say the reason why I appreciate you, Gabby, so much is because you are exactly who you are, and you are helping take off a lot of the stereotypes around women. And that is so cool. And we just had a good conversation. Like, we scheduled the conversation for the podcast, and through the midst of the conversation, you're like kicking it on your couch. Your daughter comes through, your wifey comes through, and it's like a family affair. And even though we haven't talked since then, I do feel connected to you because you're such a genuine person. So I appreciate how you move through the world, and I appreciate you being willing to share that with people in a transparent way. Let's start with something really simple, or not. How'd you grow up? Who are you as a human? Where'd you come from?
How did I grow up? All right, so I was born and raised in Florida, which is relatively unique. Most people transplanted here. Nobody was born here. South Florida. So my family moved from New York, so they came down here, and then had me. So they were transplants down here. So that was really unique. I never really liked Florida. But, that's where we landed. So, I grew up down here, stayed down here. My mom was a single mom. My parents were separated. So it was mostly just me and her all the time. My dad lived nearby, but he wasn't, that involved in anything positive. So we won't talk about him that much. But, so there was that. And then, I went to private school up until at the beginning of middle school, and then I transferred into public school. I stayed down here, and all I ever wanted was to get out. I wanted to leave Florida. I never liked it ever since I got old enough to learn that there were other places in the world. Florida was like, I don't want to live here. For my 18th birthday, I was determined to move, and all kinds of life stopped me, and not being sure where to go. And a lot of my family was here, so there was a lot of human beings that were a reason to stay. I did a quick stint in Vermont, and I liked it, but it was a toxic relationship, so I came back here because where my family was. So that's where I was. So I'm still here for now, temporarily, because it's also now where my family is.
I heard you say that you were in private school and then you moved to public school, which is very challenging in itself, just from what I've seen in friends that have done it. So talk a little bit more about that experience.
Yeah, so I went to a Christian school, and my family was not really religious practicing at all. My grandmother was Catholic, and she was my grandmother on my mom's side was Catholic and the most practicing out of all of us, but didn't push it on the grandkids. It was pushed more on the kids, but once the grandkids came around, we did or didn't go. It was just her thing by then. She wasn't trying to make everybody else do it. My parents, though, did not practice at all, but so I don't really actually know the story as to why they sent me to private school, but they did. I did not really, I mean, I did not fit in for a million reasons. But I didn't really buy into it, and it was really hard. I really didn't enjoy it. There was a pretty good amount of bullying happening to me. I did not understand, I had the audacity to question the religion. So that was, that wasn't good. I was obviously queer. I mean, you can look back at, at pictures and videos of my childhood and you can see that I just got queerer and queerer and queerer. And I was still in elementary school and the beginning of middle school. So, I didn't really fit. I didn't really fit the mold. And so it was really imperative that I got out of there. It wasn't good for me. Like there was a lot of bullying happening, and the school was just getting smaller and smaller because that's kind of what happens, right? If all the same kids go to school together, right? There were no new experience. It was the same kids and the same teachers that I had known, my whole life, and it was just it wasn't working for me. So I was begging to go to public school. Like I wanted out of there so bad. Plus a bully of mine was coming back the following year, and I was like,
You're ready to dip.
I'm out.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not going anymore. I think my last year, my 6th grade year, like I feigned sickness all the time and I stayed home all the time, as much as I possibly could so that I didn't have to be there for any of it, like 5th and 6th grade. So eventually my parents were like, well, I guess we should probably let you go to public school.
The things that we have to go through as kids and the way our world seems so small, but kids are complex. And I think that millennials, we do a really good job at being able to acknowledge how complex kids are because our realities were just a little bit different. We are right on the crux of the kids should be seen and not heard, and technology boom, and how are you feeling? All of those things. And when we're talking about technology and the crux of that and how quick things move, one thing that I think is coming into light in, the last 30, 20, 10 years, depending on who you are, that people are different. And we should celebrate that and all that jazz, whether it's, you're Black or you are a transplant from another town, or you are an immigrant, or you're first gen, or you're LGBT. And I'm going to stop there because this is how it was introduced to the world, right? Like LGBT. And then Q came in. And then there's pluses and there's extra Q's and I's. And because there is almost like a sense of being Black, and it's like, when do you ask the right question to the right Black person about what I should and should not say, or what I should and should not know? So when we're talking and you say queer, break down in your own mind, because y'all, we are not like, just like Blacks and women and millennials are not monolithic, neither are queer people. So Gabby's not going to talk for every queer person, but this woman is dope as fuck. So I'm going to let her grab the mic and tell it, break down queer to people in other countries or people that just aren't in that box of knowing what that is.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, because queer is an identity that I adopted more recently because I like it because it encompasses more than just like who I love and who I do relationships with. So I assigned female at birth. I identify as a woman, although I'm pretty gender queer and fluid in a lot of things and everything. And I'm attracted primarily to women exclusively. But it's not just about that. So lesbian, I identify as bisexual first, but I mean, because I didn't know. And then once I learned about myself and identified as a lesbian for a long time, it didn't feel encompassing enough, right? Like it's not just about who I love. There's a whole community of people here. So for queer, felt like it includes my fluidity. It feels like it includes my identity as being butch. It includes my connection to the entire LGBTQ plus Alphabet Mafia community.
Alphabet Mafia,
right? It feels like it's just like it's more inclusive, and I know it can be used as a gender term, and I mean an umbrella term. I also really love the reclamation of it. So, you know, it was used as slang for so long, and it was used against us, and reclaiming it and being like, no, I like that word. That's me. There's power in that, and I love that, and I love that callback to, like, you may have called us that before, like it was a bad thing, but it's a good thing now. So that's fine. You can call me that, and it's not going to do anything to me because I like it.
Yeah. No, that, you know, and that's spot on. I'm glad you bring that up because that's always a debate with words in the Black community. I like that you say that about queer because from now what I understand, like you were saying, you were learning and it was bisexual and then it's lesbian and then it's identifying with queer. That's one of the things I've learned because this hetero girl, I was like, damn, I'm pretty sure she's hetero. She just said she's queer. And I was all fucked up because I was like, wait, I wasn't sure. And mind you, I'm in the gay community, like deep. And even with gay people, all of us sitting over there, sometimes we're like, what the fuck is queer? So it's not just, you know, it's just another way to express yourself and understand who you are. And so I'm glad you mentioned that you more closely identify with queer because it's not just about sexuality within who you are as a human. So when we're talking about who you are as a human and we're moving through, you do private school, you go to public school. What was next? How was high school for you? Where did you go after high school?
High school, I loved high school. I had a unique experience in that I did 9th grade at one high school and then transferred to another.
Same.
Just because they opened up a new high school in our area. So that was kind of neat. I liked that breaking in the new school type experience and like getting to know everything. It was pretty cool. I didn't really want to leave the first school because I liked it and I had grown up near it. In fact, that private school that I went to was legitimately next door to the high school that I was going to. So I went my whole young life being like, I'm going to go to that high school. And then I only went for a year. But probably really good for growth if we're going to like get all deep on it, right? Like it was probably really good for growth to be like, you did go to that high school, but that's not where you're supposed to stay. So I liked it. I got to get involved with stuff. A big reason why I had really wanted to go to public school and stuff like that when I was younger was because there were so many opportunities. There was sports and drama clubs and all just different kinds of things that I could do with my life that didn't exist in private school for me. So then when I got to middle school, I was too scared to do any of it. But by high school, I was ready. So for me, high school was fun in that sense. I also came out in 10th grade when I was, I came out in 9th grade, actually, when I was 14. So I came out as bi and I started that. And then I had my first girlfriend in 10th grade. So, and that was unique. There were not very many people who were actually like interested in dating. And I was with her for 2 years through high school, which was like an eternity in that age range.
Forever.
It was like forever. And so it was fun for me. Like for me, high school was a relatively fun memory. I got to explore myself a lot. I was very much so the token lesbian though. So there was also a lot of women who wished I was a man. They were like, man, if you were a dude, you'd be like the perfect person. And I'm like, or I'm the perfect person and you're attracted to me? I don't really know. Like, maybe we should sort that out. I feel like that's always the plight of the butch. The straight girls like the masculinity and all the things, and they're like, but you're just not a man. If we're going to call back, if we're going to tie through, like, that's another reason why queer is a great title. Because then you don't have to say that. You can be like, guess what? I'm attracted to you. And that's fine. You don't have to play the, oh, if only I wasn't a lesbian. Well, what if that means you're also randomly attracted to this one man? Do you have to change your whole type, right? Which is why I also say labels are stupid, right? They're stupid and restrictive. Like, or you could just be like, well, yeah, well, you know, I wish that, let me just try that. Like what?
Yeah.
It releases this freedom, right? So, but yeah, that felt like always the plight of being more masculine of center is that was always the thing. Oh, you're perfect, but
So you identify in 10th, you date somebody for a lifetime, which is 2 years in high school, and then you leave high school and you do what?
Well, I went to college. So I went to college because I thought it was what I was supposed to do, obviously, right? I went to university because I thought that's what I was supposed to do, instead of a community college. And that did not match my learning style in any capacity. In high school, I did a lot of theater. In high school, I started the Gay Straight Alliance that we had there, and I wanted to continue doing those things. So I tried to do theater and the Gay Straight Alliance in college, and I did. But theater wasn't really a career direction for me. I just enjoyed it for fun, and so I got just really lost. So I went to university. The classes, that format of lectures and stuff like that did not work for my brain in any capacity. I felt really like I was a first generation college student, right? My parents did not go to college at all. And they wavered in and out of whether or not I should or shouldn't go. So it was really my own decision, but I was not really given good information as far as I was concerned. So like, I just didn't feel like anybody really talked to me about the differences between them. They just all said, well, you need to be able to go to a university. And I was like, okay. So I went and I just didn't do well. I did really well. I was always a good student. I was always a great student. I was an A student in private school. So I continued that on as I continued on.
Went to our dumb public schools. Got it. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. It was totally fine. And I flunked out of so much stuff, and it was too much. It wasn't the right learning style. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't see the goal. I didn't know what I was going to do. You know what I mean? Like, I knew I wasn't have a career in theater. It wasn't what I liked. So I just didn't know. I joined the Gay Straight Alliance on campus and quickly became the president. It all was like a big old mess of stuff. Like, when I look back on it, I'm like, that was like a whole tornado of crap. Like, they were like falling apart, which is how somebody who just started became the president. I'm like, that don't make any sense. But I was, and I tried. I had no idea what I wanted to do with my degree, and I couldn't find a degree that had a title that matched what I wanted to do. I was confused, and it felt like nobody had any answers, so I was just like trying to get by. I was also searching for my independence, so I wanted to move out of my mom's house and move on and do something, but South Florida living doesn't really allow for that. It still doesn't, and it didn't back then.
Why?
So it's crazy expensive. There's nothing for young people just starting out to be able to like easily get a place to live that's not a house. And the school that I was at was a commuter school. I stayed local. I stayed at FAU at Florida Atlantic. Most people didn't live on campus there. So it's not like there was a college town, right? Like if you go to like bigger state colleges and stuff like that, they have like, they're set up for it. They're like, nope, we're ready to bring all the college.
Yeah, the apartments that are called the commons, where it's like the four.
Right. They're like, you either live on campus or you live off campus and you drive, and there's like no support for that. So it was just rough. And I was working because I needed to work because I didn't want to live at home, and I always worked. I worked from when I was like 14. So I had to work. And so I just ended up kind of diving into work and trying to afford everything and let all the school stuff fall apart, because I was like, I don't even know what this is doing for me.
We will not get started on
on higher education.
Higher education and the lack of practical application. But I will say this: the higher education people that I have currently been talking to at a lot of HBCUs and people getting their doctorates in higher education, shout out to Destiny, they are aware. One, we're aware that higher ed is moving slowly. We do understand that it's quality, but it needs to be more practical, and it needs to be applied practically to everybody and not just people that are afforded their parents' business that they can go intern at, or a connection to get a good internship to have experience once you leave. So that's a big thing. So you finish college, and we're young adults. so fun being a young adult. It's so fun. Oh gosh. And
So fun.
I say that with like all the truth and the lie all in one. And you're coming into your own, you're understanding who you are. What has been one of the most impactful moments that just pops in your head that you can remember in your life?
Oh man, there are so many impactful moments. You want from that time frame?
Oh, it's up to you. I'm here
You
for
just want everything.
Just anything you want to give.
The most impactful moment. That's so rough. I'm bad at picking favorites, so if you want to learn something about me, that's what I hate. Now I've thought of like 10 impactful moments because you mentioned it. I mean, I'm gonna say that embracing my identity as being butch and masculine of center has been probably the biggest deal. And recognizing that it was part of who I was, because it sort of tied everything together in my life. So it may have happened later on in life, but it absolutely has like sort of connected everything together all at once.
I love that. So we're going to dive into that because I like that topic. When you're talking about identity, let's go with first, like, how do you hold on to what you define as femininity?
So, I mean, that's interesting. How I hold on to it, I don't know. I was trying my entire life to get rid of it because I thought that it was, because it was so pushed on me.
Mm-hmm.
So femininity was what I was quote unquote supposed to feel.
Mm-hmm.
I was supposed to like all these things. I was supposed to like boys. I was supposed to like all these things. I was supposed to grow out of being a tomboy. I was supposed to eventually like wearing dresses. Those are all the things that had been fed to me my whole life. Like, okay, it's fine that you like this now, but later on you're going to like something different. And sure, everybody's a tomboy when they're younger, and then they grow up and they stop that, and then they want to date boys, and I didn't do any of that. So I just always felt like something was wrong with me. I liked other things, and so because of that, I hated anything that I felt was feminine, except for other women.
Yeah. So really, I want to know, like, what do you define as your feminine qualities now? Like, fuck what people are telling us they are. But
sure.
Like, how do you define it?
I mean, I just don't really define it, but I've never really gotten to that point yet, but I'm not shirking it off anymore. So I'm not trying to avoid it. I'm just embracing it. I mean, because I don't really think that, it has to be so black and white to be like, this is feminine and this is masculine. Like things like you know what I mean? Like the fact that I am emotional, or the fact that I do the laundry, or the fact that I wash dishes, or the fact that I like to fix things don't necessarily have to be defined one way or another. So I think that it's more so that I'm trying to shirk off anything about it's not really about defining one or the other, feminine, masculine, or anything in between, but in that recognizing that I can just like what I like, and it doesn't have to be part of one or the other is amazing, because I hated that for so long, and I shirked anything that could be conceived as feminine for so long, so far, even down to like painting nails and stuff like that. I'm a graphic designer. I like color and creativity, so like I was very interested in all of that when I was younger, but then really felt the need to shirk it because it was so pushed on me. So realistically, I'm not really trying to define anything, because I don't really believe that they belong in different subsets. Although things have femininity and masculinity inherently, I don't think that they need to be labeled to the sense of saying like, this is, I don't know if that makes sense, right? Like they need to be free flowing and at the same time can be defined. So for me,
yeah, no, I'm following you. I got you. Yeah. Because when I'm thinking of it, I'm like, okay, well, your masculinity is feminine as fuck because you identify as female and you're Gabby. So when I'm like your masculinity is feminine as fuck. I tell people whatever I do, my cussing is feminine as fuck because I'm doing it.
If that means you're throwing the softball around, that is feminine as fuck, because that's what it is.
Yeah. I mean, I was a college athlete playing softball. So what is something in life that you have fabulously failed at?
Oh my gosh. I fabulously failed. Oh my gosh. I mean, I feel like I fabulously failed at fitting into any kind of box that anybody wanted me to be in. And like, it's beautiful. I'm always like, nope, it's not gonna work like that. Try again. Yeah, I think that. Not only is that like most fabulous, but I think that's my favorite. Like fabulous, like just I just failed at being anything that anybody wanted me to be, myself included. Like I thought I wanted to have like a doctorate, and I thought I wanted to have all these different things, and I was like, nah, I don't want to do that. It's not actually what I wanted. So, yeah.
How long did it take you to get to that?
What am I, 34 now? I mean, I think all of that happened in my early 30s. Like, that I just started to realize, like, I don't know what all these things were that I was thinking, but let's try this again.
Okay, so then what's something that in your young adult life, let's say the 20s, because we're all slowly establishing through this podcast, not even on purpose, that our 30s are when we just start becoming okay. Like, damn it, y'all that are in your 20s listening to this, you are amazing exactly where you are right now. And let me tell you, when I was in my 20s, I was everything. And then when I got in my 30s, I was like, my 20s was everything but damn. I was a hot, jumping out the grease mess. But in your 20s, what's something that you feel like you learned late, or you wish you would have grasped a little harder onto?
Like, I wish I would have recognized and healed from different traumatic experiences earlier. I wish I would have listened to my gut more and recognized different things that were happening that I had the power to do something about, and done it. And worked on that stuff for myself, for me, not for anybody else. And I wish I had done it in my 20s so that I could have been a little bit further along instead of waiting until my 30s to do it. So I think that stuff is great. Like, that stuff's really important. Like, recognize those things that were not right from when you were younger and figure out how to make them right with yourself, whether or not that it always has to be traumatic. You know, like, my story has some trauma to it, but not everybody does, I hope. I genuinely hope not everybody has it. But I feel like there's always still something, right? There's always still something generationally. Our parents only know as much as our parents know, and there's stuff that we always have to heal from, that we learned in society or taught ourselves or whatever. And I think learning that in my 20s, that would have been great. That would have been a good.
Yeah. What kind of trauma, when you're talking about trauma, what kind of trauma are you talking about?
I mean, for me, I just had a lot of experience with narcissists. My father was very abusive, and continued to be until I finally made a change for myself. And of course, that impacted my entire life and all of my relationships, and my relationship with myself, and my all kinds of relationships, friendships, romantic relationships, all kinds of stuff. Obviously, it presented the biggest in romantic relationships, as it does. But you know, that was like the biggest trauma. And then of course, you know, the fact that continued, and the relationships were also traumatic, and that relationship was also still continuing. So you know, learning about that's what I mean by listening to myself, is that knowing I always knew something was wrong, and I always knew I should have done something about it, but I didn't really know how. So in my 20s, I do wish that had happened. So again, I'm also always saying, people in your 20s, like, when you feel some icky shit, work on it. Like, look at it now. When you have that first, like, real gross breakup, and you're like, why does this seem real familiar? Like, take some time and look at it. Like, figure out what's happening. Because
and so dealing with it when you identify it, or sometimes just realizing that you being okay may just be your center getting moved so much that your self-survival mode goes in, and you don't even realize how far from center you are. Right.
It's true. And figuring out how to get yourself back and just figure it out. Like,
and you know, daddy issues, dads, we need you to do better, and the ones that are, bravo.
That's right.
Shout out to the great fathers that are on season 1 of LaRae Infinity. Let's talk to men about it. We appreciate y'all and keep being transparent and being girl dads. Yeah, girl dads and boy dads and all that. Be dads. I love it. Okay, so speaking of COVID, that's we're 400 plus days into COVID. Think back to the first time you realized the pandemic was happening and this shit is real. What were you doing? How was your mental health? What were you doing?
So funny enough, at the beginning, I got sick right up top.
You had COVID?
I mean, I don't have a positive test to prove it, but I had all of the symptoms. Yeah, so I was sick right when the world shut down. I had what I felt like was just a sinus infection, like a run of the mill. My partner had one, so went and took care of her and helped her. And then, of course, like, come Sunday night, we could hear it in my head, and it was like, okay, so time to, I was like, all right, so it's probably me next. No, of course, woke up, went Monday morning sick, and I was like, all right, sinus infection, whatever. But then it didn't stop; it just kept going, and so the world also started shutting down, and everything started happening, and I was sick, and then I was sick for 9 weeks. So, yeah. I went to the hospital. I was coughing. I went to your face. Yeah, your face said it right there. And so, of course, we did not know what was going on, and we didn't understand. So I quarantined myself. My partner and I did not live together at the time. So I wasn't going to go anywhere because I couldn't impact our kid and all the other families that we were with. So I was stuck in my room for 9 weeks. I went to the emergency room. There was nothing they could do. I got tested. The testing was so early and so not efficient and terrifying actually then.
Let's remind people what the testing was.
The testing was terrible. They stuck that Q-tip so far up my nose while I was sitting in my car by myself because I couldn't have anybody with me. So that was, it was like a war zone looking. Not really, but that's what it felt like in the movies, right before it starts, I didn't know what was going to happen to me, and I had to be alone for everything. I had no physical support. I couldn't have anybody near me. Nobody could take me to the hospital. Nobody could just come with me and sit with me and, talk to me, anything. So I was very isolated. It was very scary. In addition to not just for myself, but in the world, right? So it was crazy. So I was sick for the first 9 weeks of it. That's where I was. And then, and then everything started to come back. But I was sick, so down here we started to shut down March. That's when I got sick of 2020. That was.
Yeah.
You are listening to the LaRae Infinity Let's Talk podcast. On July 17th, the WOMI app has paired together with the US Space to bring Melanin Minds Mental Health Conference and partnering with our very own All Real Radio right here in Houston, Texas. This hybrid holistic health conference is all about amplifying and bringing to light melanin mental health professionals and celebrating and uplifting our mental health in the melanin communities. For more information, visit melaninminds.org and make sure to follow Melanin Minds on Instagram at _Melanin Minds. That's _MELANINMINDS. Back to the listen. Enjoy.
Okay, so I heard you say, and I already know you have a partner. I call your wifey, everything else. But we have to be for real here on Let's Talk. So, would you rather be crazy rich or deeply in love?
Oh, deeply in love, obviously.
It's not obvious, but you tell me why.
I mean, that's okay. Well, then we're going to get real deep about whether or not rich actually implies financial or not.
Ooh, let's go.
Let's go. Because being deeply in love is its own version of being rich, right? So, no way. I'm all about the love, though. That's totally money. I mean, financial, in terms of finances, money is money. I don't want that kind of power. I don't want that kind of, I wouldn't even ever have that much money because I would give it away to people. And so I would never be comfortable with that. But okay. I'm all about the love.
You're all about the love.
I'm all about the love. Yeah.
If you already, if love wasn't in effect and I was just like, okay, put a number on the rich you want. I am not telling you what to do with the money, but you can tell me what you're going to do with the money. What's the number? And then what would you do with it since you'd give it away? Let's talk.
Oh, I mean, well, okay. I mean, I would give it away to all the things that I'm passionate about. I mean, the number, I don't even know, because any number, all I want is for my family to be comfortable and secure, for us to be taken care of, for us to not have to worry about where meals will come from, or the roof over our head is safe and taken care of, whatever that number is. There's no number for that. For us to be able to enjoy our lives and do the things that we want to do. And aside from that, I mean, I would funnel money into all the things that I care about, making sure that, any kind of transgender organizations, any kind of, any LGBT serving organizations, anything that uplifts BIPOC people, anything that uplifts anybody who's marginalized is totally where I would just put all the efforts into, for sure.
Got it. Yeah. So, I call us the others.
Yeah. I want all the marginalized people. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like, and even with the word marginalized, I don't know, I just feel like so many of these words that we're using to identify is almost like oppressing in its own way. And I always question who's the person that actually is the one that named that. Like,
that is true.
Because marginalized sounds so like, technically I'm a marginalized person, right? One thing I have noticed lately, and it's something I am appreciating, that the people that are not the others, we'll use woke, because I think that's a generalization that can be understood.
Easier one, yeah.
It's the generalization that can be understood. The people that realize that what was going on and what is going on is not okay. So the people that aren't the others, that realize that stuff, are quiet, and they're listening in a very humbling way to, I guess, themselves, because it's not humbling to me, but it's really good to experience seeing people that don't look like me be able to ingest my experience.
That's important. I saw something today. So there's a lot of talk about rainbow capitalism right now. It's Pride Month, and so
ridiculous.
We're ridiculous. And so it's a big talk in the community, right? About, corporations who just try to get more money from us because they see an opportunity to do so. And I actually saw a cisgender straight person post about this today, from a very, they were like, I see this, and while I get really excited for my LGBTQ friends, I'm wondering, are these corporations actually doing anything? And that's exactly what I'm thinking. I'm like, look, they're even starting to notice, right? That person's not aligned with any communities or organizations. They're just a self-appointed ally, and certainly have always, they're a supportive type person, but even they were like, what are they actually doing? Is this a thing? Is this not a thing? And I'm immediately like, yes, you're right. It is a thing. It is called rainbow capitalism. You are right.
It is.
Keep talking about it.
Yes.
Keep telling the people about it.
Yes. Yes. And let's talk about all the capitalisms. There's the Negro capitalism going on right now. There is the woman capitalism, and something that I have been, so at the bar during Pride Month, we would take advantage of the capitalism because we could get all the free stuff, but at the same time, there was a real realization. We're like, okay, this is for clout, and it's every year it's growing and it's growing and it's growing. Even Black Lives Matter, BLM, and the reports starting to come out about women of color and Black women that are entrepreneurs. And the fact that you give us $1 and it turns into $1 million, legitimately, these studies that are coming out about us bootstrapping and making it versus our WeWorks or our dudes that get $1 million investment and they end up at the end of the year negative $2 million. And it's like, what does that look like? And then I get nervous because there's a lot of the flags coming out with all the colors, including trans and the brown and the Black. And it's like, I don't give a shit if you hang a flag up. I don't give a shit if you put a fist up. I don't give a shit if you say that you want a woman to be on your team. I want a woman to be in charge. I want a trans person to be in charge. I want a millennial to be in charge so that the floor doesn't look like a whole bunch of old dudes that have no like all these things. Like I could go on forever, but yes, all the capitalisms, they get quite annoying. I appreciate that people are trying, but it's like, is it for the money because we have the buying power? Like, where do you go with it, Gabby?
So I think that it's important that I think there's no other way around it. We have to hold space for both things. We have to be happy that there's representation. I will I played Disney Emoji Blitz, right? It's a game on my phone, right? And they had a Pride Month box, and I got emotional because when I was young, when I was a baby gay, gay days at Disney was a thing that you did. They warned families not to be there on those days. Disney was against it. And in my lifetime, I've seen it to the point where they're like doing something like that.
Yes.
And having gear and stuff like that. So there's something important in that like companies are willing to do it. And of course it's motivated by money because they're companies, not people, right? So there's space to hold for that, to be really thankful that we've gotten to this point that these companies do it. And then we're at the point where we need to be empowered to say, that's great, but you have to do better. Thank you for this. This is great. However, this is not enough. Now, right, where is my Black queer woman in charge? Where is my transgender person running X department? Where is, right, you're not just a company of white men sitting behind the desks going, we should probably put that flag on things. Let's use that one with the black and brown. Like, no, where's the stuff? Where is your tie to the organization that is actually doing it? And not just, oh, I paid for a float at Pride and I put my logo on it and we waved some flags around and had a booth. Like, what are you actually doing to help your local community? Not just giving to GLAAD. I mean, there's even, I'm also like, not even just giving to GLAAD and HRC and the big name easy ones.
What are you doing for the organizations, the grassroots? Right.
Those big ones are great. I love all of those programs. They have friends who work for them. They're great, but everybody knows all of them. And so great, you want to donate your money to them, great. But what about, right, the smaller ones? What are you doing for the small grassroots organizations who are helping the people, in the community, right around you? And that's for me, that's it. That we can stand here and say thank you because it's progress and it's part of our history that we finally got to this point. That that we have this, that we have so many companies saying out and saying Happy Pride, and now we get to say thanks. Now, great. What are you actually going to do about it? I don't remember. Time is an illusion now after 2020, but there was that song that I think it was Taylor Swift had released or something, and it was like a Pride. It was supposed to be like a Pride anthem, and we were like, but why isn't it by a queer person? Where's the artists who are actually, right? Like, it was a whole thing.
I can't start with Taylor Swift because she's supposed to be the voice of the millennial generation. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I can't even start there. But yeah, Gabby, you're absolutely right. And I like how you say, there is this point of gratitude and emotion, like with the Disneys and with all of these large organizations and companies, and the realization that, hey, it has to look like this, even with immigrants, because, hey, the country is full of immigrants, even the people that don't think that they're immigrants. And how does that look? So it's not just the flags and the fists and the symbols. It has to be in the action. I love that. Right. I love that. And as you're talking, we can all tell that you have some type of platform, or that you are behind the mic. And clearly, since you're on season 3, the ladies behind the mic, you are a person, a lady behind the mic. So we want to talk a little bit about that. What do you do to get ready to be behind the mic, to shift that energy, to make sure that your message is clear? Like, is there a hype thing you do, a song, a meditation?
I don't even know. I feel like I can't think about it. I can't actually think about it. I just have to do it. There is no real, I mean, like, the prep needs to be in the details, right? So like knowing like some boundaries, some guidelines, and then I can go to town. But like, I can't, if I think too hard, I'll overthink it, and then I can't. So it's pretty much, for me, it's laying out the bullet points of what here's what I know I need to talk about, or here's what I know that I feel, and here's the generic, and then I'll fill in all the blanks. Like, then you just got to give it to me and I'll do it. Like, I'm a learn by doing type person. So that's what I happen.
Yeah. So you do prep though, like you have your bullet points, which is definitely a thing. Now, do you still get nervous, and how long have you been quote unquote behind the mic?
I mean, I am so new to being quote unquote behind the mic. I have always been a behind the scenes person. I've always been like, just give me the camera. Okay. I don't want to, I was behind the stage stuff in theater. I didn't even like being on the stage. I was so much happier behind. And so I'm relatively new to it. Only with the Butch Boudoir project have I actually come out to be behind the mic. Although a little bit of that also came from our nonprofit that we had started running down here. But the project really pushed me to be behind the mic because it was me talking.
Yeah.
So it's my story and I'm the one talking about it. So it has to be me.
Do you have any advice for anybody that is typically not behind the mic, but behind the scenes?
I think my advice would be that even if you don't think people want to hear your story, people want to hear your story. So if there's something that you feel like you want to talk about, just talk about it. Don't talk yourself out of it. Like, it doesn't, whatever your story is, even if you've heard it 30 other times, even if you think nobody wants to hear it, that people want to hear what you have to say, because you're the only, like, we're all unique. Even if we lived similar lives, we would always have a different experience. So everybody's story matters, and if you feel like you want to talk about it, talk about it. If you feel like you want to do it, like, just do it. It's valid and it's important, and somebody else wants to hear it, like, always.
Yeah, that's so good. And it's a good point. Even again, y'all, season 3, it's like I get my own personal lessons and I get my own personal gaslight, because I always think that even about this podcast, I'm like, man, why am I doing this? People don't want to listen to this. And then I talk to people, they're like, yeah, listen. I'm like, why don't you tell me? Like, is there something from your past that you've gone through or experienced that you don't like to talk about?
Sure. Yeah. I don't like talking about my experience with my dad. And I'm surprised I just talked about it so freely at the beginning of the podcast. Yeah. I don't like talking about it at all. It's a part of stuff that I try just not to do, but.
So my question around that is, why do you think that we can identify what we don't want to talk about, and we know that it's not healthy not to talk about it, but we still don't talk about it?
That's a good question. I think there's a lot of shame. I think shame and fear are like the two answers for all of that, right?
Yeah.
So fear for me is thinking like, oh, well, what if he hears it? Mm-hmm. Okay. He did it, didn't he? Right?
Yeah.
Like, what I did all kinds of things in my lifetime, and if somebody talked about it and it was something I actually did, then what am I going to do? Be mad that they talked about it? I did it. Like, like I made those decisions. It's true. It's honest. It's not like I'm fabricating it. Mm-hmm. But I think shame is always the thing, right? Like, I think that we have these ideas that we're supposed to be, these things weren't supposed to happen. There's a lot of shame and victim blaming, and like, it's my fault that I let things happen to me. And I don't even mean that about my own experience. I mean, in general,
the actuality of it. Yeah.
The actuality of it. Right. Or, somebody else has been through worse than what I went through. I know somebody who went through much worse stuff. Okay. That just means something bad happened to you and something worse happened to somebody else. Like that those are all like all these tactics that we use to like, victim shame everybody who's experienced anything. It doesn't have to be as bad, right? There's no scale, right?
The comparison isn't necessary. And even to this point, and I say it a lot, but my 10-gallon cup or my 10 gallons is not the same as your 10 gallons, right? Like yours may be frozen. Mine may be water. Somebody's may be juice. And so the substance of it is all different. And what I can handle and what I was equipped to handle in this lifetime may not be the same for what you're equipped to handle in your lifetime, or vice versa. And I just think that, as you go through your walk of life, everybody's ability to handle stuff isn't the same.
Sure, we're not all the same. We don't all have the same brains and bodies, and our hearts and minds don't work exactly the same. And then privilege plays a role in that too, right? Like, we don't all have, it's not all the same shape and size, and sometimes it's more full because of what's happening around us. Things are completely out of our control, right? Like, we're talking about being, marginalized and stuff like that, and how we don't like that term. But if somebody's 10 gallons, they're born at 8, full. They only have room for 2 more.
Pull deep, right? And
What
then
are they gonna do?
if we're talking about the gallon, Gabby, how about
Right.
somebody that gets holes constantly poked into their gallons? So
Right.
as they are,
How are they ever going to get ahead?
right, they constantly
Right.
fill it up, and there's somebody pushing holes back. And so when I
Right.
think about that, I also think about, and I was like, am I going to say anything about this? But I thought it was very interesting when we were talking about Crazy Rich or Deeply in Love, and then we started talking about rich and what you do with it. You said for richness, basic essentials, right? Like, so what does that talk about when we're talking about that gallon and where your gallon started in the 10 gallons? Because, you know, somebody that maybe is born into privilege that never has thought about roofs overhead or didn't even realize what a bill is, that answer would have been completely different. So I found that very, very interesting that when we talk about being crazy rich, you're talking about some fucking food in a house.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about making sure we don't have to worry about where that comes from. But you're right. Yeah, exactly.
What's something that overwhelms you?
Too much input from people, right? I'm really like very introverted. So too much stuff is too much. Too many meetings in a day for work is overwhelming. Too many inputs that, you know, too many people talking, too many asking for too many things at one time is too much, or like too much need for me to be output. Like I need that time to be quiet. I need time to not have to output so that I can actually have something to say and do. If there's too much required, I can't. So like social events need a downtime after.
This is good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I get therapy for free. Like, you can too. Just listen to the LaRae Infinity Let's Talk podcast.
There you
See
go.
how I did that? As you say that, I'm like, yeah, that's what overwhelms me too, is overstimulation. So how do you deal with that?
That's really like setting really good boundaries, making sure that I leave time for decompressing and make sure that I leave times that I don't have meetings, leave time that I, you know, try not to plan too many social events back to back. Now, granted, with COVID, that's been beautiful because I've been able to do none. but you know what I mean? Like even a live chat though, you know, like even a live chat on the with the project takes the energy for the night. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, setting healthy boundaries around making sure I don't plan too many. Listening to my partner when she says, I think we've hit the limit and you need to push on to the next month instead of booking things this month. And like, you know, listening to myself and saying, I'm really tired after all of this, what do I need to do? But that's all boundaries and self-awareness of saying like, you know, where am I at reasonably, and letting that fluctuate and be free. You know, some weeks I might have, you know, the ability to go out and do something every single night, and some weeks I might have the ability to go out one night, and not shaming myself for one or the other. And being able to say, no, I can't this week because it's just too much.
Yeah. Not only we teach people like this, give people grace, understand them. Understand yourself, give yourself grace. Who impacts you, and then who do you hope to impact? Okay.
Who impacts me are people who are authentic and unapologetic. So, and confident and just who they are. Whatever that is, it doesn't have to have anything to do with my identity, whoever they are themselves. So that's always impactful to me. Fame is not necessarily important. Celebrity doesn't really, you know, necessarily do it. It's important. The visibility is important, representation, but in terms of real honest impact, it's that. And honestly, the biggest thing who I hope to impact the most, I mean, the truth is really anybody who wants to learn from what I have to offer. But if you're going to make me pick a favorite, I want to impact young, queer, masculine of center, gender fluid, genderqueer kids who realize that they can grow up and don't have to do what I did. Like that to me makes the biggest thing, is that when people younger than me can see, or for that matter, you know, also people older than me, but really younger people than me, so they don't have to walk through that same thing, so that they can see like, oh, it's okay to do that. I can grow up and have a partner and a kid, and I can have all those things that I want, and just because I don't see it around me, it exists. Or I can grow up and still want to be a tomboy. I don't have to grow out of this, or that's what I can look like, and I can continue to cut my hair short, or I can continue to do whatever, makes me real happy. To me, that's important, that younger people can see they can just keep doing it.
It's hella important.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all, we just did the damn thing. Gabby, you are a phenomenal human. You excite me as a human. Feel free to play this back if you liked what you heard. Please share. This was an episode of vocabulary words. So if you need to learn, feel free to go back and listen, as well as just, again, a roller coaster of good times and fun and being unapologetic about the journeys we're taking, because they're not perfect, but they are exactly who we are and what we are supposed to be doing, whether we like it or not. That's just what it is. Gabby, before we hop off, I want you to tell everybody where to find you and just a snippet about your project.
Okay. So it's at Butch Boudoir Project on Instagram and Facebook. butchboudoir.com. Website will get you to all of the things if you need it. But the project is all about empowering masculine of center and butch identified humans across the gender spectrum, promoting visibility, promoting representation, just empowering us to be ourselves and be okay with who we are, and embracing sexuality, embracing our identity, embracing just all the stuff about us as whole entire humans and all the things that we do in our lives. So that's what it's all about.
I love it. Y'all, and you have to go follow Gabby. And I'll tell you this so that you know, just like this podcast, it is girlish, it is boyish, it is uncomfortable, it is love, it's laughter. There's moments of vulnerability and everything on one Instagram page, and it's mine, but Gabby's is like just up there at the top for one of the ones that I scroll through in the morning just to see what the fuck is going on in her world with the boudoir project. See, there's just words, boudoir.
It's
there you
so
go.
good.
It's so good. All right, y'all. And so you know how this goes is you're moving through the world, is you're figuring out who you are, trying to move into the human that you are supposed to be. Always remember that there is always somebody going through something, and it pays and it's worth sitting down and chopping it up with somebody that doesn't look like you and sometimes doesn't think about you. In that same breath, protect your mental health. And as always, tell your story, be your own brand, live your truth, and stand in your moment.
All right, y'all. My name is Gabby, and I'm 34 years old, and I hope y'all had fun listening to my story and that you learned something about butch visibility and representation. And you just listen to my story as I live in my truth and stand in my moment on the LaRae Infinity Let's Talk podcast, Season 3, Episode 10.
Gabby, thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a blast. Beep. And I'm 34. I'm not 35 yet. So
I was gonna
I'm prepping myself for August, but I'm not quite there yet. So.
Oh, I already have my bloopers.
I'll give you plenty of those. We got that. Beep.
Okay.
Let me tell you, I also appreciate that you only want the one zodiac sign and not every moon rising and location of the planet, like dimensions.
Well, I'll say this again. I'm on your ride, and some people are like, I'm a zodiac sign, moon rising with a Cancer, Scorpio, and I'm like, beep. Boudoir. Just
boudoir. You got it.
Boudoir project.